Item 8 is for the award of the Gus Thomasson Road project. This is a major thoroughfare project to reconstruct Gus Thomasson from its limits on the south end at US 80 up to Town East Boulevard at the north limit. We did take open up bids. As mentioned, it did come in under our engineer's estimate. The big topic of conversation or concern is that the low bidder is Tiseo Paving Company, which is a local contractor, is based out of Mesquite, has done numerous projects for the city of Mesquite as well as other municipalities and governmental entities as well. An analysis of the bids show that there was quite a bit of difference between the low bidder, Tiseo Paving, and the second low bidder, which is Texas Sterling. There was $1,072,000, $690 delta between the low bidder and the second low bidder. As you recall, Tiseo Paving is our contractor on the Motley Drive project, which has just reached substantial completion on November 6th. That was another very large project, over a mile long, major thoroughfare project. Unfortunately, that project came in over time, and so we were very concerned with Tiseo Paving's ability and desire and willingness to complete this new project, the Gus Thomasson project, within the contract limits. One of the things we did as a staff in analyzing the Motley Drive project is we had a liquidated damages clause in that project of $500 per calendar day for every day over the contract time limit. That obviously did not provide adequate motivation for a contractor to add additional crews and resources to the project to bring it in within contract time limits. So we looked at the Gus Thomasson project, and we looked, how do we build into that project additional penalties and incentives to that project to provide the motivation to a contractor to finish that job, especially critical areas of that job, on time. And so what we did is we broke the project into a couple of very critical areas. We set two milestones. One is the area on Gus Thomasson from US 80 up to Town Center Drive. The second milestone area is the northern portion from North Mesquite Drive to Town East Boulevard. Those are the areas that funnel a lot of traffic into our Town East Mall area. So we're very concerned that we finish those areas on time and with great speed, so we do not affect the mall traffic for the next year's coming Christmas shopping season. So what we did is we did add, in the council packet there is a copy of the special provisions. We have a number of so-called hammers, liquidated damages clauses, and incentives to finish those areas quickly. We intend on starting construction right after the Christmas shopping season, the first part of January of 2019. You'll see here we have an incentive in milestone area 1, which is the area to the south from US 80 to Town Center Drive. There is a incentive of up to $2,000 per day that they finish that prior to November 15th. Conversely, if they do not finish by November 15th, there's a $2,000 per day liquidated damages for not finishing that section on time. There's a second milestone area, as I mentioned, in the north between North Mesquite Drive and Town East. Again, an area critical for traffic circulation into the Town East retail area. We have a second incentive there for up to $100,000 per day to finish that segment by November 15th of next year. And again, a cumulative liquidated damage of another $1,000 per day for every day they don't finish. And then for the whole project as a whole, there's an additional $1,000 per day liquidated damages for the whole project. So you can see there's a series of incentives as well as penalties built into this project that far exceeds what we had in the Motley Drive project that we think will provide the incentive to the contractors to mobilize resources as necessary. We also had a lot of discussion with the representatives of Tiseo Paving, and they are present here in the audience. We have the president of Tiseo Paving, Louis Tiseo, here, and they're open to questions, but we did have conversations. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have a question on the page you were just talking about.
Yeah, I was trying to be sensitive to flow of presentation. So it looks like 2,000, 1,000, 1,000. So it could be a cumulative 4,000 per day if the entire project is going over the November 15, correct?
Correct, sir.
And so I just thought it was important to compare that to the Motley per day penalty so that people knew the difference and why you're doing this on this project.
The Motley is only $500 per calendar day over the total contract, so there were not intermediate milestones on the Motley Drive project. There was just a single liquidated damages penalty if you didn't finish within the allocated project time.
And approximately how many days over did the Motley project end up being?
204, I believe, was our calculation, calendar days over. There were some additional days awarded to the contractor as part of a number of change orders that were encountered during the course of the project. So adding those all up, there were 204 calendar days over.
So at 500,
that's over $100,000, $102,000.
For a $7.7 million contract.
Correct, sir.
So the penalties and the acceleration bonuses that you provided obviously are a lot more and would have a much more significant impact, good or bad, on them meeting their deadline.
Absolutely, sir.
So are you happy with this structure as an evolution from that previous contract structure?
We are happy. We had numerous discussions in staff and with our consulting engineer on the level of both incentives and penalties. And we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of incentive for the contractor to finish on time.
Okay. I have some other questions later, but I just want to get that in at that point.
Some of the things that I want to point out that the staff looked at carefully in evaluating whether to recommend Tiseo Paving for the award or not was, number one, the quality of work that they've done on past projects, including the Motley Drive project. While Tiseo did go over on contract time, the quality of work that they gave us on the project has been excellent. And both our consulting engineer, our inspector, as well as the public that drives through there, the quality of work is quite good on that project. Also, in negotiating with the contractor on those change orders, they did not attempt to gouge the city in their pricing. Their pricing was very reasonable in all the change orders that we negotiated with them for issues with the plans or factors that we found out after we started digging that we weren't aware of that had to be accommodated with a change order. So they were very, very good in that as well. Also, the issues with the Motley Drive project as far as going over was primarily due to their subcontractors, almost exclusively due to their subcontractors having financial issues, not performing as expected. Tiseo Paving has assured staff that they are bringing in a different group of subcontractors with a much better performance record, and we have had some experience with those subcontractors as well to ensure that the subcontractors that they utilize on this job are able to perform and to bring in multiple crews to man the job and bring those resources in so we finished this project within the allocated contract time. One thing we did look at is Tiseo is a local contractor. They're able to provide jobs in Mesquite. They have the ability to set up a temporary batch plant at their yard here in Mesquite. And all the concrete that's batched for that project will go down the US 80 service roads, will not be on city roads that we maintain in our jurisdiction. It will be solely on the US 80 service roads. So that's another advantage in that we're not going to be tearing up city roads and building this project, because all that ready-mix concrete that's traveling to that job will be on TxDOT jurisdictional right-of-way and roadways. So those are a number of the factors.
Mayor Pro Tem Alderman.
I believe you've answered my question. I was going to ask specifically because I understand that it was the subcontractors that brought forth a major part of the delay, but you're saying, in essence, they're not going to be using the same subcontractors.
That's
they're going
correct,
to be using
sir.
some different subcontractors now.
That is correct. They have committed to using, they've even given us the names of a number of the subcontractors. In your packet, there is a letter from Tiseo Paving kind of outlining some of the steps that they intend on taking to make sure that we have subcontractors that will perform and perform well and quickly on this Gus Thomasson project.
Because that was going to be my other question, too, about the disincentive amounts that y'all have come together on as a staff, if you feel comfortable with that as well. So I just wanted to know that, because obviously if it wasn't, if that wasn't moving them in doing the work that needed to be done and get it in a timely manner, knowing that it's the subcontractors as well, but you do feel comfortable with that amount.
I really do. If you look at our incentives and penalties on the Gus Thomasson project, cumulative, they're 4 times or 8 times as much as the Motley Drive job. And that combined with incentive clauses where they can get, if they get all their milestones completed in time, they can gain up to $300,000 in incentives on this project. So that's a huge motivation for the contractor, and some of those incentives are passed on to the subcontractors as well. So it provides incentive not only for the prime contractor, Tiseo, but their entire tier of subcontractors as well.
And I know that this is the firm that was able to bid out and get the lowest bid in as well. And that we had a little over $14 million that was budgeted for this, but we're getting it for a little over $12 million. And just in your presentation sometime for our listeners and viewers, if you can let folks know that are listening and viewing what this $12 million is really covering in an overview, just an overview, not detail, but an overview, because a lot of folks, they can see that figure and then, wonder for that stretch, so. Anyway.
The project stretch is over 1 mile long from US 80 to Town East Boulevard. We are going to be replacing that concrete that is failing out there now with a heavy-duty concrete pavement. In areas, it's going to be 12 inches thick, in other areas 10. Heavily reinforced concrete pavement. It's going to be 6 lanes up to Motley Drive from US 80. It'll transition to kind of a combination of 4 to 5 lanes from there up to Town Center Drive. We've looked at the intersection of Town Crossing, or Town Center, and Gus Thomasson to optimize that intersection for traffic going into the mall and leaving the mall, because we know that there's often backups there. So we've analyzed carefully the traffic counts, the projected growth in traffic, and optimize that intersection. There will be a new signal light there as well. Then it will be 4 lanes up to North Mesquite Drive, and then again adding additional lanes from that heavy traffic section from North Mesquite to Town East Boulevard. There's going to be a lot of amenities in this package as well. There's going to be a 12-foot wide trail next to the residential section in the park that will be added, as well as amenities, kind of a park-like setting on the astronaut streets that dead end into Gus Thomasson Road. So we think it's going to be a beautiful project, but a very functional project when we're finished with it as well.
I think also he was referring to the water, the sewer, the drainage, all the underground structures that raise the price of these projects is what he was kind of referring to as well.
Correct. The water and sewer, there's over $2 million of water and sewer work alone on that project, so all the facilities underground will be replaced or upgraded. The storm sewer that's there right now will Much of it will stay in place, but we're going to augment it with an additional storm sewer to bring it up to current design criteria and make sure we prevent any potential for flooding on that roadway as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, fine. So now is an appropriate time for my other question. And you mentioned it briefly, but I just wanted to catch it. Some of the questions are, why can't we just blacktop it like we did Gross and Northwest Drive? Why do we need to do a full depth replacement?
You can see if you've driven the roadway recently, there's a lot of areas that are major failures. We actually looked at a major rehabilitation contract on Gus Thomasson about 4 years ago. We actually went out, and I believe we even took bids on it, and the bids came up astronomical. It was very close to some of the total reconstruction costs. So we actually, back then, we stopped and said, why are we putting all this money, and we still have a large portion of the road that's an old road. That road was it was under construction when I first got here with the city 35 years ago. So it's had 35 years of life. It's nearing the end of its life. It is an old road, and there's many areas that are failing. So the question is, how do we best spend our money? Is our money better spent rebuilding this with the funding we have available? And this funding is coming from our tax increment finance district and some water and sewer money. And do we spend that money to rehab a road and still have large sections that are really past their useful life, or do we go ahead and rebuild the entire road?
And no, I appreciate that. So, for example, just blacktopping it, that would or would not cut it?
It would not cut it. We'd have to do a lot of pavement rehabilitation. You notice there's joints faulting out there. Overlaying the road with asphalt does nothing to solve those type of issues, and they would quickly come back and cause trouble for us again.
So when we're doing a full depth replacement, that's because the road, the underlying road itself is failing or has failed, and you've got to completely replace that section of road.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And then if we're down there and we also need water and sewer repairs or enhancements, we do that at the same time also, correct?
Correct. It only makes sense to rehabilitate your underground structures before you put new pavement over the top of them.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, thank you. And I'll just kind of piggyback on what the Mayor Pro Tem had expressed, that I think there was some misunderstanding among some constituents about the price tag perhaps being for partial things, and this is for everything, correct? Okay. Yes. So that's good clarification on that. And I would just, I wanted to ask, it looks like you've got some good things put in place for incentives as well as discipline for the kind of issues we saw with Motley, and I'm grateful that you guys have done that. Good job. Were there any discussions that the higher bidders, and I like lower bidders, but were there any discussions that the higher bidders or the next to higher bidder could have been substantially just overall better for us, even with the higher price tag, or you still feel like Tiseo will do the job just as well at their price tag?
I think Tiseo will do the project just as well. Otherwise, we would not make that recommendation to you. Right? We drive these same streets, and I drive on Gus Thomasson frequently. It's a needed project. Tiseo does have a good track record. If you look at the information, we checked references. Everybody gave that they've done projects with recently has given Tiseo great references. Tiseo has done a number of projects for the city of Mesquite. They did Pioneer Road for us on Dallas County. That was their project as well. They've done a number of very high-level, difficult construction projects over the years, and have done an excellent job on them. And again, the quality of work on Motley was a very good job, just unfortunately over on time.
Okay. Well, very good. And the last thing I want to mention is, and this isn't as much for you as it is our city manager and our communications department, I think that as we have gotten better about communicating to large numbers of our citizens for various things that come up and keeping them informed, especially on the infrastructure issues and some larger commercial projects we've done here in the last few years where there were time-sensitive issues or running over. We're getting better and better about informing our citizens. I just want to encourage us on this project and projects like this going forward. If we do have a snag or something comes up and it does look like we're going to be kind of running behind, even if it's just weather-related, that we maybe put something out there and, of course, keep us informed, but also let our residents know, hey, we're running behind on this project. That way, we're, I think, preventive striking in terms of keeping people informed ahead of time, and there's no frustration. Tip O'Neill once said, always be better to be the bearer of your own bad news. So just a suggestion going future. Thank you guys very much for this.
Thank you, sir.
Robert,
No, just to say, I like what you shared, and I'm glad that we're using a local company, Tiseo local company, and you already mentioned they can provide local jobs as well. And I'm also glad that they're attacking what the problem was.
Yes.
Over at the other side as far as subcontractors and all that, because that tells me a lot. So
Yes.
I appreciate them in doing that they're correcting things so they can keep moving and keep going after getting more business. So that's great. So I appreciate it.
Robert.
Yeah, last thing, I'm sorry to break it up. How much have we spent so far on design work and engineering work?
No, it's over $1 million. I can give you an exact number in just a second here. The engineering design contract, all phases, there was an extensive, public input phase, which did add to the cost of that, but it's $1,187,250.
Thank you.
Mr. Nupson.
Thank you. The only issue I had that I wanted to get some clarification on is the letters from Tiseo and then the accounting regarding Tiseo did not seem to have an unequivocal, yes, we are going to pay you the liquidated damages for Motley. It was unclear as to whether or not they've stepped up and said, yes, we will pay you that. Unless I missed that somewhere in everything we got.
I don't think that's negotiable, sir. Certainly they can always appeal staff decision to the city manager and city council, but it's staff's recommendation that we apply all 204 days as liquidated damages, sir.
I get that, and I think that we probably ought to have that cleared up before we award them another contract.
Matt, just to be clear, we withhold that money from payment. It's not like it's a check that's written back to us from Tiseo.
That's correct. We hold on this contract, larger contracts like this, we have a 5%. We have a 5% that we withhold. It's called retainage. And so we're holding 5% retainage on the overall $7,600,000 project. And so we will deduct the amount of the liquidated damages from that retainage amount that's released to them on the final payment, sir.
And when is that set to occur?
They're still working on some change order items. I would imagine we'll finish up the project within the next 2 to 3 months or so. We're working on a change order for sewer and some channel lining in the channel where the big storm drain outfall. And there's some miscellaneous punch-out work and things of that nature. We generally don't release retainage until the job is 100% complete, including even the minor punch-out items.
So it's possible that we could award this contract to them and then get into a fight over the liquidated damages?
Potentially, sir, I suppose.
Okay.
If they dispute that.
I'm uncomfortable with that timing. So I don't know if there's a way to get around that, or to me, I would have felt a lot more comfortable if in their letters persuading us as to why we should go with them, that they would have said, yeah, we were 204 days late, we agree with staff, and we owe you that money.
Louis?
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Tiseo, why don't you come up here and introduce yourself?
And we can do that out front as well. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Louis Tiseo and represent Tiseo Paving, and we will not contest the liquidated damages. We take full responsibility for what happened.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt.